Mr. Speaker, Canada's national transportation system is deteriorating and it's hurting our economy. Passenger rail is in jeopardy, and 3 successive Conservative transportation ministers have neglected to enforce the Canada Transportation Act and the Railway Safety Act. When rail infrastructure deteriorates, federal rail and transport agencies aren't even empowered to fix anything. They can only tell trains to slow down or get off the track altogether. Too many of our railways have slow or stop orders holding up grain shipments and via passengers. The Minister of Transportation is the only person with the power to order that the federal railways be maintained or upgraded. Rail companies only invest the minimum amount to maintain the railway for the services that help their bottom line. New businesses can't invest, and existing companies can't adapt quickly. This Conservative government, like the Liberals before them, has brushed off private sector innovation to revitalize Canada's railways. With business development at a standstill, more crucial railway lines are being cut, Mr. Speaker, permanently. We no longer have the capacity to handle additional service when it's needed on short notice, so our grain shipments are held up. More available routes would give us this ability. Instead, Mr. Speaker, we're losing those options. Sir John A. must be shaking his head to see his visionary investment now in jeopardy under today's Conservatives. Rail safety is in a needlessly tragic state in Canada. Many lives have been lost in recent months to derailments and disasters. The government has allowed rail carriers to self-regulate and granted them exemptions from even carrying adequate brakes or even testing brakes. Self-regulation is not working, Mr. Speaker. Last year, the Auditor General reported that Transport Canada today has insufficient safety auditors and poorly trained inspectors. He said Canadians don't even have a, quote, minimum level of assurance that railways are complying with safety rules. What's more, passenger rail has never been worse. We're on the brink of losing coast-to-coast service altogether. Canada remains the only G20 nation with no national rail strategy. I did a whistle-stop tour through the Maritimes this past weekend through Bathurst, Miramichi, Campbellton, Amherst, Truro, and smaller towns in between that need that ocean train. But passenger service to connecting Canada to Nova Scotia and New Brunswick is now in jeopardy because CN is abandoning 71 kilometers of track between Miramichi and Bathurst. And the Transport Minister says she isn't even willing to spend the $10 million needed to take over this stretch of track. Why not? Far more federal money was spent in buying sections of track in southern Ontario to preserve via service in southern Ontario. But this minister just says private industry can do what it wants. Why are the Maritimes being marginalized? Mr. Speaker, enough of this mismanagement and lack of common sense. Will our Transport Minister provide this House information on all of the railways that have been discontinued since the Conservatives took power in 2006, take control of any abandoned section of rail line that VIA needs to operate coast-to-coast service, and, Mr. Speaker, at long last, will the Minister table a national rail strategy in this House? Thank you, Mr. Minister.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague opposite for his intervention. There's a whole lot there. I think a lot of different topics raised, everything from rail safety to via rail. I think the focus toward the end was a little more on the via rail side. Speaker, the member will know that our government provides significant funding to support passenger rail services. In 2012-13, for example, our government provided Via Rail, a Crown Corporation that operates arm's length from the government, with $275 million across its network for passenger rail services to Canadians. In addition, Speaker, since 2006, we've invested about $1 billion in capital funding, supporting projects on everything from station upgrades, rail car refurbishment, track improvements. Speaker, I'll note that the member opposite has opposed all of that funding at every turn. On the specific rail line mentioned in New Brunswick, Speaker, the member will know, as the government has said, that they have no intentions to buy the track. CN has indicated its plans to advertise for sale. Instead, our role, Speaker, is that we provide a legislative framework that encourages stakeholders to seek commercial solutions to address the discontinuance of rail lines. And the Canada Transportation Act actually lays out the process railways must follow if they want to stop service on those lines. Speaker, the line transfer and discontinuance provisions in the Canada Transportation Act are aimed at encouraging the retention of rail lines where it makes sense to do so by giving other railways or other interested parties the opportunity to continue railway operations. While the discontinuance process is underway, CN will continue to be responsible for maintaining the rail line and ensure that service is not disrupted. If CN does not complete the discontinuance process for this portion of, or does complete the discontinuance process for this portion of track, Via Rail as an independent Crown corporation will have to make its own decision about passenger rail services in New Brunswick. Speaker, our government obviously is going to continue to monitor that particular circumstance. But on the issue of rail safety, and I want to address this, the Minister has taken a number of very important actions related to rail safety, Speaker, and our government has taken a number of actions consistently for a number of years. We've invested over $100 million in our rail safety system. We continue to hire inspectors and keep a healthy inspectorate across the country. Last year alone, we did a record 30,000 traditional inspections of everything from track to equipment, and that's in addition to the inspections that railway companies themselves are required to do, by the way, Speaker. We brought in important whistleblower protection so that employees who may see, Speaker, something that goes contrary to the rules will have the immunity that they need to be able to report those types of incidences. New administrative monetary penalties to increase the suite of compliance mechanisms available to Transport Canada officials at the conclusion of investigations where they can look at how to penalize infractions. Speaker, that makes the system far more robust. I could go on and on. Information sharing protocols with first responders in municipalities, new permanent rules put in place for the original emergency directive post-Lac-Mégantic. We're following the recommendations of the Transportation Safety Board. I could go on and on and on about how we continue to do more rail safety. But Speaker, the last point I will make is that while we are trying to get our committee out to places like Lac-Mégantic, opposition members continue to hold up that important committee travel so that we can find more things to improve rail safety in this country.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay Superior North.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Fact, funding to Via Rail has been cut 62% in the last 2 years. This last weekend, I rode Via Rail from Halifax to Saint Foy. Recently cut from 6 to 3 times per week, that train may soon be gone. Over 500 people came out to protest and to talk with me. 130 in Halifax, over 200 in Moncton, over 150 in Campbellton at 10 o'clock at night. Seniors who can't drive in the winter, students who travel to university, and cancer patients traveling to hospital. They are angry that they voted for Conservative MPs who now refuse to fight for them and their train. Angry at spineless or self-serving MPs who say pretty things in their ridings but refuse to actually represent them in Ottawa. They ask...
Yeah, order. Order. Yeah, we don't actually take points of order in the course of adjournment proceedings. But I'm sure all honourable members recall that the characterizations of other honourable members gets into a territory that can be a slippery slope, and obviously we encourage all honourable members to use language that's appropriate to the context of the debate. The honourable member for Thunder Bay Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, I'm just repeating what they told me. They are angry at what they call self-serving MPs who say pretty things in their writings but refuse to actually represent them here in Ottawa. They asked why a Green MP from Thunder Bay is supporting them while Conservatives and Liberal MPs are missing in action. They made it clear that if this government continues to marginalize the Maritimes, the Maritime voters will be seeking a new government, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I want to thank the member for sinking to an all-time new low with respect to a Green Party intervention in this House, Mr. Speaker. That horrible rant of personal attack against members of Parliament, when the member knows that the honour of members in this House is presumed, Speaker, and to use words that he did, while they may not be unparliamentary, were certainly undignified, Mr. Speaker. He should retract those remarks. I'll give him an opportunity at some point over the coming days to do so. But rest assured, Speaker, that every investment that's been made over the last number of years in the Via Rail network has been supported by every member of this Conservative caucus, including members from New Brunswick, Mr. Speaker, and that member's been missing in action every single time. He stands up and he puts his vote in the opposite direction. He should be ashamed of his record. We're certainly proud of ours, Mr. Speaker.